Everyone says don't fail, but the organizations that scale the fastest do the opposite. They fail, learn, adjust, and move forward before anyone else understands what went wrong. Failure isn't the enemy. Ignoring the feedback is. Hey, I'm Dave, co-host of the Blueprints to Punchlist podcast, and I've worked with healthcare companies that are expanding into new markets by building and delivering their medical facilities. The one thing I see over and over again is the healthcare companies that grow the fastest are not the ones that avoid failure. They're the ones that use failure as feedback. And this has been something that I've been teaching even to my kids is we get confused that failure is not something to avoid. Failure is part of growth. It's part of success. And it's simply feedback. And if we treat it as that, it has a whole new perspective on just what how we're approaching something. So instead of having this fear to fail and this fear to avoid the mistakes, we just look at it as feedback. Well, are we going to learn something from this? How do we go? How do we go and get better next time? So point number one here is that expansions always create friction. When healthcare companies, or any company for that matter, is opening a new location, something will go wrong, especially around construction. You got permits that get delayed, plan details that get missed, subcontractors that maybe don't perform as well as they should. So that's all feedback. And if we look at it as such, that's how we change the perspective on that friction that it's creating. Is it still frustrating? Yes. Is it still potentially going to cost money for that friction? Yes. But we have to be able to learn from that. And again, when you're moving fast, things are going to break. There's just no way around making sure that everything is perfect in a scenario where there's so many people involved. So again, every project, every location, just have to learn what it teaches you and figure out how to improve for that next step. Okay, number two is failure shows you where the system is weak. And a lot of leaders and people think that leadership is about having this notion of perfection. But when something breaks, no pun intended, is actually showing you where that system needs to be adjusted. Maybe it's the communication that the subcontractor had with the GC with the owner. Maybe it's the owner back to downstream for the GC and the subcontractor. Maybe it's the planning. The biggest thing that I wish that if I could go back to my early PM days was to have a more clear understanding of the full process and having a roadmap and a guide to be able to visualize some of these. And when I say visualize, just to be able to think through some of the processes that were coming up instead of having to just kind of ad hoc and figure it out as I went along. So it's when we're working with different teams, it really is about that coordination between design, construction, the construction team, the owner, and again, when that system breaks, it's just, hey, this part needs attention. We have to figure out how to address that attention and make sure it doesn't happen on the next one. And if you working with a team like here at Wilson, we have 4 or 5 different project managers. We all do things similar, but in different ways. A lot of times, how we achieve that. So, can we learn from each other? Can we figure out, hey, my other, like for example, Ken, my other co-host, he does his project updates slightly different. Can I take something from that and implement it so that I can have a better output? So And even, it's funny, even this podcast and even these videos, sometimes I have to do multiple takes on the same topic. It's not about getting it right, but we were joking earlier that sometimes it literally takes even the most polished, even the best podcasters and people that you see on the internet. It takes multiple takes. It takes the best cuts and the editors to put that together. So all of that applies to this mindset of the failure is simply feedback, and we just have to adjust as we're moving forward. And then lastly, point number 3 here is, again, the best organizations are the ones that close that feedback loop really fast. So internal meetings, weekly communication, sometimes daily communication if the project warrants it, meeting on a day-to-day basis. We talk a lot about open clinic remodels. Some of those remodels require a daily update, daily touch point with the owner's rep, with the practice, with the clinic administrators to keep them updated, making sure that they're being properly cleaned and left for the construction is not affecting operations. It's progressing the way it's supposed to. And it's just very intricate. Some of these healthcare build outs, 8, 10, 12,000 square feet. Sometimes we have situations where we have inspectors involved and they're coming back to say we have to correct and adjust and make the changes. So how do we get that and keep the owners and everybody up to date with the feedback of what happened? Again, it's never about perfection, even though that may be the standard. Perfection in construction is nearly impossible to meet. It's really about how do we close the loop? How do we close these feedback loops? What did we learn? How can we change and get better next time? How do we prevent this on future projects? And most owners that I work with actually appreciate this. We've worked with several clients that have multiple projects going sometimes at the same time, and it's having those end of project downloads, or maybe once a quarter we'll get together and figure out what it is that we can do better. There's always room, and if we take the ego out of it, then it really comes back to just, again, having failure as feedback and nothing more, nothing less. But sometimes it's not fun hearing the things that you did wrong, but still have to take that. That's part of growth. That's part of growing as a person, as a company, as a team. So I think when buildings are done right, you can focus on what matters most for these healthcare companies, which is impacting the community and with that they serve. So if you found this video helpful or you got some nugget out of it, subscribe for more insights on healthcare construction. And if you have a question on your next healthcare project, reach out to us at wilsoncompany.net. We'll see you on the next one.